back with another episode of Local Roots. Hi, I'm Todd Studer, and we continue today with Law Enforcement Week, and we have another special guest coming up today. Recorded a number of interviews on Tuesday at the Masonic Lodge in Council Bluffs because those good folks set these interviews up for me. They were feeding lunch to law enforcement from a wide range of folks. In fact, I heard they served well over 300 lunches, burgers and brats and chips and everything that went with it. And big turnout for that. And it was great to see. And they had set me up with a lot of interviews. And today I'm going to bring you my conversation with Pottawattamie County Sheriff's Office Chief Deputy Steve Winchell. And great guy, and hear a little bit of his background, what got him into law enforcement, and why he has had such a long career in it. So that conversation coming up very, very soon. In the meantime, wanted to let you know that Castle and Associates of American Family Insurance is your local insurance provider for all your home, auto, life, business, and farm insurance needs. 4 convenient locations. They're in Trainer, they're in Council Bluffs, Bellevue, and in Elkhorn. They are local and in your neighborhood, ready to help you navigate the complexities of insurance today. We're going to get Travis back on the show very, very soon because he has some great information about some of the changes that has taken place inside of the insurance industry. And a couple of weeks ago, we did an interview with Travis, and he reminded me and you at the same time that when you get letters from your insurance company, open them. It's not spam. It's chances are that it could contain some changes to your policy. And these are things that you need to know. So if you have any questions about it, Travis is big on information. So get a hold of a Castle and Associates of American Family Insurance. Give them a call. Get your free quote. Do you or does someone you love need in-home care? Home Advocacy Network, a home care advocacy network, helps you maintain your own privacy in your own space while still receiving care and support with a personalized touch. Aging in place can be critical for many people. Home Care Advocacy Network can meet those needs with an understanding that assisted living is best at home. HCAN of Southwest Iowa brings the personal touch to care at home in Council Bluffs, Glenwood, Red Oak, Clarinda, all the surrounding communities across Southwest Iowa. Visit hcan.com/Southwest Iowa to learn more. Now visiting with Chief Deputy Steve Winchell from the Pottawattamie County Sheriff's Office. I've been saying this a lot today, but I mean it every time that I say it. Thank you for what it is that you do. Yeah. Because we don't function, we don't operate with guys that are and women that are willing to go out and do the kind of work that you guys do. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
Well, let's talk a little bit about why it is that this is your career. Why did you decide that law enforcement is right for me?
Yeah, how we ended up here. You know, I grew up in this county, small town. I grew up in Trainer, and didn't really look beyond. In high school, where am I going to go? What am I going to do? And I really enjoyed history. So I went to college, played football at UNO for a couple of years, and I was sitting in history class, and I'm like, what am I going to do with the history degree? I enjoy it, but what am I going to do with the history degree?
Right.
And I knew some folks. I had some folks that were in my life, not family, but in law enforcement. Always kind of had a bit of interest, but didn't really want a desk job. Didn't know what I was going to do. I remember getting up out of history class. I walked across campus, sat down to criminal justice college, and I asked for an advisor. And I said, hey, I think I want to change careers or change degrees and go after criminal justice. And so he sat down and we talked about that and how life goes. So I changed my major, went another year in school, got a different job, ended up doing a labor job, and I knew that wasn't for me. And I ended up running into the previous sheriff at a wedding of all things. And so we started visiting, what are you guys up to? I went to school with his daughter, my wife at the time, or my wife that we went to school together. My wife and I dated in high school, so we all knew each other. And said, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm in this job, but I think I'm gonna get into law enforcement. And sheriff's wife said, well, isn't the jail hiring right now? Never thought in the world about working in a jail. Mm-hmm. I'm like, that sounds kind of interesting. And the rest they say is history, right? So I went and applied for the jail, got hired on a number of months later, quit the previous job I was working, started in the jail, and loved it. So I worked in our jail almost 5 years. And during my time at the jail, got on the reserve deputy program. That seemed interesting. So I got on the reserves. I'm like, this is what I want to do. So talked with my wife and decided that I was going to test to try to become full-time on the sworn side. So the jail really helps you communicate. Obviously, you sit and talk to people all day long, 24 hours a day, and it really helped me with my communication. It's a great stepping stone to move onto this side of our house, and ended up on the road, got selected, went to the police academy, worked my way on the road, and worked evening shift for about 5 years, was blessed enough to get promoted, became corporal, got promoted, became sergeant, ended up on overnights, was on overnights for a few years, blessed again for another promotion, ended up a road patrol lieutenant, was lieutenant for not quite 4 years. New sheriff comes in, made some structural change with the command staff, ends up as captain. Oversaw the jail, and I can tell you when I left the jail in 2009, I did not think I was going to come back and work in the jail at all, and I definitely didn't think I was going to come back in the number one chair. So I did the jail for about 2.5 years. Our chief deputy retired last summer, and sheriff chose me to be his chief, and so now I'm back on the sworn side, sitting in the chief deputy spot, which is still mind-blowing to me. I'm very fortunate, very blessed, and really appreciative of the previous sheriff for promotions. Current sheriff that we have now, he's been wonderful. So I'm blessed to be where I'm at, and I'm just very grateful. A lot of gratitude for this job.
I'm wondering about that day, your first day working at the jail. I'm envisioning that you are scared out of your mind and exhilarated beyond belief at the same time.
Yeah.
It had to have been just a very powerful experience for you.
Yeah. It was. I grew up in a small town, conservative household, and moving into the jail and seeing how human beings not only treat others, but how they treat themselves was a very eye-opening experience. And at the time, I wasn't married yet. My wife and I were both in college. I actually moved home to save some money when we were preparing for the wedding. And my father sat at home and just waited for me to get home from work on overnights. He was an early riser, so I'd get home at 6:30 in the morning and what happened last night, So it was like a source of entertainment for him.
I never thought of it that way.
What came through the door and what happened at work last night.
Yeah.
So it was an experience, very eye-opening. How humans, like I said, treat themselves or treat others was very eye-opening as a kid raised in a very sheltered home. So.
Well, sure. I grew
great.
up in small towns too. Now, I actually grew up in a town smaller than Trainer.
Yeah.
But it's a different type of life. I mean, when the sun goes down, the town shuts down. I mean, it's quiet.
Yeah.
And there's a certain pace to it that's a lot slower.
Yep.
And then you leave that, and you go into law enforcement. There's nothing slow about law enforcement.
Yep. Yeah. It was eye-opening, and to your point on everything shuts down, you come into the city, whether it's Council Officer Omaha, or the amount of people are out at 3:30 in the morning riding bicycles and just wandering around. It was eye-opening as a young kid, coming out of teens and getting into 2021 and moving into the big world, and the big boy job and that kind of stuff. So it was a fun time. So
how do you compartmentalize in your mind? Because you see the negative side of things a lot, knowing that this is not all that there is.
Yeah.
There's more to what's going on in our community than just the negative side, but yet that's what you see the most of. So how do you maintain your spirit and to be able to stay positive about life in that type of position?
Yeah, I would credit my faith. My wife and I both raised in church, still doing that, and having that foundation, but on the human side, also realizing I didn't create this problem. And so when I was doing training, and I was training our new deputies when I was a field training officer, when I still worked the street, it's kind of funny, I said a little bit ago, I didn't want to drive a desk for a living. I wanted to do a normal job, and now that I've promoted, and I now drive a desk for a living as an administrator. And but I always told those guys, I'm like, you can't come here with emotion. You didn't create this problem. We were called here to help, assist, fix the problem if the folks that are involved can't fix it themselves. And you deal with it, and then you're done with that call and you go to the next one, and then the next one, and the next one. And it's not personal. We have a job to do, just like everybody else. And our job is human relation, and helping people solve their own problems. They can't solve them themselves. Offering help when they want it, or they're going to submit to the authority that's been given to us if they choose not to. So, our pastor always says, you better learn to submit to authority at some point, whether you do it on a personal level, with your job, with your faith, if that's something that you can submit to. And if you choose not to submit to anyone, you will probably live a life and become submissive to the government, and you end up in incarceration in some way, shape, or form. So self-governance, I learned that at a young age and sitting in church. You better learn to submit to authority, because if you choose not to, and you conduct yourself life as a selfish way of life, you will probably ultimately end up submitting to government at some point.
Yeah, so I think that to what you're saying, that there is a hierarchy to things, and if I think that I have all of the answers, then I'm done learning.
Yeah.
I'm not done learning.
Yeah.
I don't know that how much do I actually know of the knowledge that exists? I don't know, not even a fraction of 1%.
Yeah.
So the learning never stops. So that's a very good way of putting it, that we sometimes think of the term authority as a negative, but it's not.
Yeah.
It really isn't. Mm-hmm. That it exists for a reason, and we need folks that in your position to make sure that we're just kind of keeping everything the way it, inside of an area where it needs to be, because chaos doesn't work.
Yeah. Chaos is a phone call away. And back to your question about how do I deal with that? And that's, I had the ability to just tell myself and tell others and help people understand, like, we didn't create this problem. And I have an ability to, when I get home and put my car in drive and I walk in the house, I leave work at work. And like I said, I attribute to my faith and my ability to give that responsibility to somebody else. And I come home, I'm husband, father, and spend time with the kids, and I do my best to not bring work home with me.
Right.
So,
hard question, but was that a skill that you started with? Do you think that that was something that you picked up pretty quickly and said, "Oh, wait a minute, I can't be bringing this into the house"?
I think that's something that you learn from your peers early on in the jail. You leave work, especially working in a jail. When you leave and that big heavy door closes behind you, you're stepping back into the real world, mm-hmm. and you can leave that stuff there. So I think it's kind of a learned behavior, but also understand that I can control what I can control, and I can't control the things that I'm getting called to, and the chaos that I'm going to step into and deal with. Do my best to try to handle it, but I think that's something with really credit having a faith background, but I think you pick that stuff up and you look for it, and how can I manage the stress, and how can I manage anxiety, and how can I manage the darkness that is the job. And I think that's just learned over time, and you can pick that up from lots of different ways, but having peers, having good deputies in front of me that show you a healthy way to deal with the stress. And in any job, including ours, there can be unhealthy ways to deal with that, and that's thankfully it's not a lifestyle that my wife and I have chosen, and I've been blessed because of it. So,
how often do you have a conversation with a young person, or maybe of any age, that is thinking about going into the field of law enforcement? Is that something that you talk with many people about?
Yeah, it's a great question. Amongst our circles, some of our staff, and not only our staff, but other agencies and other law enforcement officers that we know about, I don't think I want my kids to step into this.
Mm-hmm.
Some of the craziness that it's become, and I disagree with that. We need good people in law enforcement, and if your son or your daughter is their personality meshes well, because we all know kind of a good personality that makes a law enforcement officer. And if you have a child that would fit well, I'm not going to steer my kids away from it. I don't know that my kids, I got teenagers now, I don't know that my kids want to do it, but if they showed up one day and said, "Hey, what do you think about this?" I'd absolutely support them. We need good people in law enforcement, because somebody's got to do it. And I, as a taxpayer and as a citizen, and I want good people in that job. So those that are interested, we need to go find those folks and get them in our doors and get them in our jails and on the employee side, not the incarcerated side, but
Right.
you know, and with our sheriff's office, we have, now that I'm in the chair that I'm in with the chief deputy, Pot County, we have our 911 dispatch center, we have our jail we're responsible for, and our sworn side. So a lot of people look at our sheriff's office as, you know, we're still a small town agency. That in one way that's true, you know, but we are one of the larger agencies in the state of Iowa. And what people don't understand is Sheriff Brown has approximately 215, 218 full-time employees under his control. Because you look at how large our jail is, you know, 58, 9 sworn, our 911 center, 24/7 operations. It takes a lot of staff to make this machine run. And if it's not a sworn side, if it's not this badge, we got people that work in our jail that do an unbelievable job every single day. I worked, you know, was blessed to work with many of them, and we have our dispatchers, and if nobody's answering the phone, then everything stops. If nobody's downstairs answering the phone at our dispatch center, no help's coming. So our dispatchers is, every job is unique, but every job is vital. And if it may not be the sworn side, we need people in public service that are inclined for that, and their personality fits well. We need to go find those people. And so if we do come in contact with folks, I'm like, hey, you should look at the sheriff's office. You know, if it's not us, council post needs good people, but come work for the sheriff's office, and we have lots of different options for you, lots of different jobs.
Well, what's the process? I mean, how do you find these people then? I mean, you have to, step number one, they need to know that it's an option.
Yeah.
But where are they? Where are the potential recruits sitting at right now?
Everywhere. I mean, it's amazing when you start talking to people in public service. Some of them have always wanted to do it, right? Some people always knew they wanted to be a doctor, always wanted to be a teacher, always wanted to be military, always wanted to be in law enforcement. They have a lineage in their family. But a lot of us don't. A lot of us like, what am I going to do? You know, and that's where I was at. I was playing college football, and I didn't know what I was going to do, and I felt like kind of I was led down this path, and been blessed beyond measure. But the way we recruit, and I'm assuming some of the others that you've been interviewing are talking about recruiting now, because the days of us showing up on recruiting day and there being 2 or 3 or 400 people trying to get that job, you know, we'll show up on testing day and we'll have 25 people show up. And what we see, and I've asked other agencies, big and small, of those that come in the door, how many are hireable? And I would say the average is about 4 to 12% of the people that come in the door are actually hireable. And what I mean by hireable is they have a past that isn't going to catch them up. You know, their psych is where it needs to be, you know, because we put people through a psychologist and personality testing, and they have to pass all that. So, and then sometimes they get into it and they do some job shadowing, and they're like, this isn't for me, you know. And the goal is to try to catch those people on the front end and not spend the tens of thousands to get them through the training, and then this isn't working out. You know, you have to find something else, and that's unfortunate. But we try to find good folks that are a good personality fit and a good fit for our sheriff's office family. And the way we're doing that now is engagement, social media engagement, cell phones, going to the colleges. You know, we've got school resource deputies now, school resource officers, but our deputies, we have 2 in the schools. And I think that, now we didn't put them in the school for recruitment, but I think that some of those kids would be like, man, I really respect Chad and Kurt and what they do, and we can get that face-to-face engagement with the young folks. And I'm sure those conversations are happening in the hallways in the schools, and now we may not see that come to fruition for a decade, but you know, we got to find different ways to find people. Social media has been really, really helpful for us.
Well,
so,
and it's helpful, but also at the same time, it's kind of all-encompassing. So you're getting a much wider audience on there that hits a lot of different areas. So that's where all of the testing and everything that you said that comes in. And I would assume that having a conversation with somebody and say, look, this is also an opportunity for you to find out whether this is for you. And it's okay to say no.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
It's better to say no now than after you get into it for a couple of years and find out, oh, I'm really not cut out for this.
Yeah, yeah. But it's amazing when you sit and talk to the folks on testing day, you know, all walks of life come wandering in. And some of them are very intentional. They've been trying and pursuing this for a long time. And some people's like, I saw a QR code on a patrol car, and my HVAC job is not doing it.
Right.
It's not fulfilling for me. I feel like I need to be part of something bigger. And so sometimes we just get lucky. People just wander in the door that we didn't. I mean, we put ourselves out there, but we didn't talk to them directly and encourage them to show up. They wandered in, and the walks of life that people that come into law enforcement, and it takes all kinds, because we go to these calls for service, and I may not be able to connect with that family, but the guy who was with me that day, he may pick up on something that I didn't see, and he can engage with them and build that rapport, and then it takes all different walks of life, and we have a good cross section with the sheriff's office. We have a great people that work for us, and it's a really fun place to work. So
Do you think is there a common theme in there? 'Cause you kind of touched on it, of someone that's looking for a little bit more purpose in what it is that they do. I remember thinking when I was young, before I ever got into radio, that I was looking for a career that defined me.
Yeah.
That was who I was, and
Yeah.
I found it,
Yeah.
and I was able to get into it. I would think it has to be similar with what it is that you do. It has to become a little bit more than just, all right, I'm punching the time card here.
Yeah.
You have to have a passion.
Yeah, no, it's a great point. It's not a job. It's not a 9 to 5. Because you experience things and you drag that stuff home. It needs to be your lifestyle, and if you are able to find, a partner, or a husband, or a wife that is supportive, it's so helpful. But to have a job where, one, you're proud of it, but you're really in service of others. All humans are relational. Personality conflicts and differences and stuff, but able to have a job that you're proud of, and we do live under the public scrutiny, as we should, but to be able to find a job that scratches that itch or fulfills that service, and it is a position that I think the vast majority of law enforcement folks, they're super proud to be within the profession, whether it was intentional or they stumbled into this job just because they were looking for a job, and then they realize, like, okay, I can get into this, and it becomes a life of service, and you're always that guy when you end up at a public setting at a group and people find out you're a cop. It always turns into a topic of discussion, and everybody's
I'm
interested
assuming,
in it.
yeah, everybody wants to hear about your worst day ever,
Yeah.
and what's the worst thing you've ever seen. And listen, I can imagine that. I don't need to hear it.
Yeah.
That's not.
Yeah, most of us don't want to talk about,
Right. And that's
the worst day.
and I've said it on the show, and I've said it today in a previous interview, that we need to focus more on the positive, and you don't ignore the negative. But if you're ignoring the positive, life just heads downhill.
Yeah.
And there's so much positive going
Yeah.
on, and there's so many things, and I'm sure that you get to see both sides. But when that positive happens,
Yeah.
it has to kind of feed your soul.
Yeah, people typically don't call us because they're having a great day.
Yeah.
And we show up in most of the time in probably the worst day of their life. And how we respond to that is what we try to instill in our people, is go in there with authority, but show some grace, be respectful. And how we treat the public, the positive that comes out of it is that terrible situation gets handled hopefully well, and then sometimes they'll stop us at a gas station, going to get a Diet Coke or whatever, and they're like, hey, do you remember me? I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't know who you are, well, this happened on this. I'm like, oh, okay, and how you doing? And they're appreciative of how we talked to them or treated them, and so those positives do exist. The reason we're there was probably terrible, but good things do come out of that stuff, and we do. It's negative, and you start hyper-focusing on those things, and you forget about the positive things that we are able to do with people and help them. So,
And that's why days like today, I think, are even more important. I mean, it's just, again, I've talked with everybody that sat in the chair here today, that it seems like a simple thing. We're cooking you a burger, and we're cooking you a hot dog,
Yeah.
and a bag of chips, and just saying thank you. But it is those things that matter most. So, as you said, typically you're going out, and that's somebody's worst day. But as we're sitting here, that's not right now.
Yeah.
This, what you're getting today that's the kind of thing that you need to hang on to and kind of feeds right back
Yeah,
in.
yeah. That's true. And we're out if we a bunch of us get together and we have we're having lunch or we're having our lunch, but dinner time, and people come up and are appreciative, and it's nice. Sometimes you're like, I just want to eat my food. And somebody comes up with a question like, "Hey, sorry to bother you at lunch," and you give them 2 minutes, and they most of the time they're just there to say thank you and they appreciate it. And the good thing about where we live in the heartland, right, the flyover states, you see all the craziness on the news media. That's not here. That's not Pottawattamie County. That's not Iowa. You see what's going on in the news media, and that stuff can and does happen here, but a fraction of what's actually going on in the country. And the vast majority of people that we serve are appreciative of us. And we're getting gas at the fuel pump, and people are saying, "Hey, appreciate thanks for your service." That little bit, it may come off or seem insincere, but they took 10 seconds out of their day just to say, "Hey, appreciate what you do," and we get that all the time. Whether it's restaurants or out and about, or stopping in to get Diet Coke at the gas station. I mean, often people are stopping us and saying, "We appreciate you." So the vast majority of our public here that we serve are appreciative. They're wonderful to work with, and our guys are not. That doesn't get lost on our staff.
Well, as we've been talking about shining a light on a positive, I think that's the perfect way to shine that light. And grateful, Chief Deputy Steve Winchell with the Pottawattamie County Sheriff's Office. Thank you very much for your time.
Yeah.
Grateful
Appreciate
for
it.
everything that is you're doing, and I hope that I never have to meet you on a professional setting.
Well, if you do, it's you're probably in the back corners of our office, and it'd probably be a terrible day for both of us. But I would just say, we talk about our recruiting. We need good people, and I know that your audience is large and growing, and I'll put my plug in there.
Please do.
The sheriff's office, and we, like I said, we have so many different divisions within the sheriff's office, and people think about the sheriff's office as a deputy. Yep, that's great, but actually it's a small fraction of what we do within the sheriff's office. And with our jail, we have we're about 116 full-time employees in our jail alone. We have our dispatch center, who do a wonderful job. On the sworn side of the house, we have the patrol deputy, but when you start looking at all of our different divisions with investigations, we have an ERT team, and we have narcotics and court security and civil department, and there's all these different things, and we need people that are willing to step up and serve something bigger than them. And if it's not the sheriff's office, if state patrol's your thing, or the police department, but we have lots of opportunities within the sheriff's office, and hopefully people are willing to come in and check us out and see what we have to offer. And it's a wonderful place to work. It's
Is there a
it's
good
an
starting
absolute
point?
blast.
Is there a place where they can go that to
Yep.
just get that ball rolling?
Yep, just go to the Pot County, the Pottawattamie County website, whether it's the sheriff's office or go to the county website in general and find the career button. And I think anybody under the age of 45 anymore can get their phone out, and within 3 clicks they can find us. You just Google careers and with sheriff's office, and so if they're out looking around, it's a great place to come check us out. So
Yeah, do it. It's at the very least, you can learn a little information. And I'm a big believer that information is never a bad thing. Even if it's bad information, it's still good to know it.
yeah,
So-
yeah,
All right.
yeah. I appreciate it. Appreciate
Thank you.
your time.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate your time.
All right, thank you.
Don't forget, coming up this weekend in Council Bluffs at Rivers Edge Park will be the NAMI Walks event. You can learn all about it at NAMIWalks.org. I'm going to be there. I'm the MC for the event, and I'm really looking forward to this because a lot of folks turn out. They're raising money to help folks that are dealing with issues stemming from mental illness, and it's right here in Southwest Iowa. All the money raised in Southwest Iowa stays in Southwest Iowa. That is such a great part of what it is that they do. So you can pre-register at NAMIWalks.org, or you can register the day of the event. So come on out. We'd love to have a big crowd there. Show support. And it's all about erasing stigma and getting help to those who need it. So we hope that we see you there. And get started about 8 o'clock on Saturday, morning, and I'm really looking forward to it. If you need precision metal fabrication done right, look no further than Foxco Fabrication in Council Bluffs. Custom welding to large-scale manufacturing, bringing your ideas to life with expert craftsmanship and cutting-edge technology. Industrial, commercial, or custom fabrication, they're going to get the job done on time and built to last. You can see everything it is that they do by going to foxcofab.com. And if you have a leak, a clogged drain, or planning a big remodel, Waldstein Plumbing has you covered. Fast, reliable service, expert craftsmanship, handling everything from small repairs to major installations. Locally owned and trusted, and they take pride in doing the job right the first time. Residential or commercial, big or small. When plumbing problems strike, call Waldstein Plumbing and visit them online at waldsteinplumbing.com. Wrapping up another show on Local Roots. Thank you so much. We've made it all the way to Thursday already. Can you believe it? And we have a lot more still coming up this week. We're doing more interviews as this is Law Enforcement Week. And again, thank you to the Masons in Council Bluffs for providing the site and also arranging all of the interviews that we've been able to bring you today. Thanks again to our guest, Pottawattamie County Sheriff, Chief Deputy Steve Winchell, on today. Thank you so much. My name's Todd Studer. We'll see you again tomorrow morning.